Hi everyone, I'm Terry Wood, author of PokerRailbird.com. In this video, we're going to explore an essential concept that can significantly enhance your decision-making at the poker table: fold equity. Understanding fold equity is crucial when you are considering a bluff or a semi-bluff. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of how fold equity can shape your betting decisions. Let's get started. Fold equity refers to the probability that your opponent will fold in response to your bet or raise. It's a crucial concept in poker, particularly when you're trying to make your opponent fold a better hand or when you're semi-bluffing with a draw. Fold equity becomes especially important in situations where you're considering bluffing or semi-bluffing. For example, when you're in position and the board favors your range, the likelihood that your opponent will fold increases. This is your fold equity at work. Several factors impact your fold equity, including your opponent's tendencies, the size of your bet relative to the pot, and the texture of the board. Tight players are more likely to fold, giving you more fold equity, while loose players are harder to push off their hands. In multi-way pots, your fold equity generally decreases because you have to convince multiple players to fold. Bluffing in these situations requires more caution, as the likelihood of someone having a strong hand increases. Against calling stations, players who rarely fold, you'll find that your fold equity diminishes significantly. In these cases, it's often better to focus on value betting strong hands rather than relying on fold equity. As an example, you are heads up. Imagine you're holding a flush draw on a board that shows a potential straight. You bet, knowing that your opponent might fold a medium strength hand due to the scare card. Your fold equity in the situation could be the deciding factor in your success. However, if this was a multi-way pot, or if you were facing a calling station, the likelihood of success would be much lower. To calculate fold equity, you need to estimate the percentage of the time your opponent will fold to your bet or raise. The basic formula for fold equity is the probability of opponent folding times the size of the pot. For example, if you believe your opponent will fold 40% of the time, and the pot is $100, your fold equity is $40. That means you expect to gain $40 in expected value just from the chance they fold before even considering the strength of your actual hand. Let's walk through a practical example. You're in a hand where the pot is $150 and you estimate that your opponent will fold about 50% of the time to a $75 bet. Your fold equity would be 50%, the amount of time you think your opponent will fold, times $150 the pot, which equals $75. This means that just by making the bet, you're earning $75 in expected value from fold equity alone. Understanding fold equity helps you justify bluffs and semi-bluffs with real math. Make more plus EV decisions with marginal hands. Pressure the right players at the right times. But be careful. Your estimate of fold probability must be realistic. Overestimating fold equity leads to unnecessary, costly bluffs. Underestimating it causes you to miss easy profit. Player type, stack sizes, bet sizing, board texture, and table dynamics all influence how often someone will fold, and that's where your experience and reads come into play. Fold equity is one of the most powerful and most misunderstood concepts in poker. It's the value gained from the chance your opponent might fold. And sometimes that's all you need to win a pot. When you bluff, you're not relying on the strength of your hand. You're relying on your ability to make your opponent fold. And in a semi-bluff, you've got two ways to win. They fold now or you hit your draw later. That's fold equity in action. Now, let's talk about position. Being in position doesn't automatically boost your fold equity, but it does let you see what your opponent does first. If they check to you on a scary board, that's your cue. You can fire a bet that looks strong because from their perspective, it is. But here's the thing, fold equity is not one size fits all. It depends heavily on who you're up against. Tight player? You'll get folds more often. Loose player or calling station? Not so much. Sharp players? They're watching your frequencies, and if you bluff too often, they'll catch you. Now, let's talk about multi-way pots. Fold equity goes way down when more players are in the hand. Why? Because someone's more likely to have something worth calling with. That's why bluffing into multiple players is usually a bad idea, unless you have a strong read and the board screams danger. Now here's the balance. Bluff too often? People start calling light and your fold equity disappears. Never bluff? You become predictable, and you'll miss a ton of opportunities. The goal is to stay balanced. Know when a spot is right, and when it's just wishful thinking. You're in position. The board favors your range. Opponent shows weakness. Your bet applies pressure. You've got a solid image. And you're heads up, not multi-way. Fold equity isn't magic. It's math, timing, and reading the situation better than they do. So there you have it. Fold equity is a powerful concept that can turn weak hands into strong plays when used correctly. It's one of the most valuable tools in the poker strategy toolbox when the math checks out and your opponent folds like you expect. But here's the truth. That's only half the story. Because what happens when they don't fold? What happens when you fire again on the turn and get called again? What happens when you bluff into the wrong opponent or get raised? That's where things get expensive. And that's what we're covering in the very next video. The true cost of fold equity, beyond the numbers. A deep dive into what can go wrong when fold equity is misunderstood, misused, or simply misread. So make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because if this video gave you the formula, the next one shows you how to survive when it fails. Thanks for watching. This is Terry Wood, and we'll see you at the tables.